So in China, even though it doesn't seem very apparent, it's a very important aspect of their culture, actually. It says there's named one of the 6 noble arts, and that's a bunch of skills that the ancient Chinese considered noblemen should know. So there's like stuff like they should know mathematics, astronomy, poetry, you know, all things that a refined gentleman need to know. But one of them was archery. You would know Confucius, you know, the famous philosopher. He was actually an archery teacher. And a lot of his writings, if you look into it, he always tries to relate a lesson with a point of archery. Like he would, I'm really paraphrasing him, but he would prefer that gentlemen, instead of taking up fisticuffs or even drawing steel, he would prefer them to take a ceremonial archery challenge where they would try to shoot a target in rhythm to drums. And then whoever, it doesn't matter whoever won or lost, they would both share a drink of wine. And then that's it. The dispute is over. That's how it should be. So that's not to say that they didn't use, like never used wooden bows. In the southern regions of China, where it's like pretty humid, and it's kind of rough on horn bows, they would often use a bamboo style bow, which would somewhat look a little similar to long bows. But it was not very common. It was more hunting, and if you had to fight with it, you had to fight with it. Most of the time, they would prefer to use a horn bow for fighting. This type of bow right here, this is kind of like the first type. This is like a Ming Dynasty example. The tips are a little like stylized, but basically you have long, narrow tips and a short bending section. This bit here, when it's short, it wants to spring back very quickly. It doesn't have a lot of mass, and the tips, since they're so thin, they let them do that. Because of that, it feels very smooth. Sung Dynasty, again, there's that particular bow shape that I was talking about. This action right here is called painting the ground. It's a very fancy looking thing. So when you release, you would just kind of like release around and just kind of let it go like that. It's very fancy, very elegant. Here in the Ming Dynasty, the bow changed a little bit. So instead of like a very long tip, actually, we have a smaller one. Smaller tips here. Right there. They were. Why did they go into that? Just stylistically, you know, or
different bows are always designed to shoot different arrows. You can see our big circle of arrows over there.
Yeah.
The question of what type of arrow you want to shoot can vary even between individual archers. Some guys think a light arrow that moves real fast is better. Other guys want an arrow that's like a semi-truck going through the air. English Longbowmen are a good example of that. The design of a bow is always designed to maximize one type of arrow or the other. It's always a mistake to try and put one arrow in every bow, because it's like trying to put different kinds of ammunition in the same gun. They're not built for that,
yeah.
right? That's a common mistake that people make when they start archery, is they figure, I've got this great bow, now I'm going to get some sort of arrows. It's actually the opposite. Spend all your money on the best set of arrows you can, and then get some kind of a bow.
Yes.
So what came first, the arrow or the bow?
Well, I've got a giant 6-foot arrow over there. That might be an answer.
The interesting thing about the Ming Dynasty, starting in 1368, is that that's the dynasty that came right after they were conquered by the Mongols. So these guys were really gung-ho about, like, you know, getting the Han Chinese spirit back, right? But in terms of military matters and equipment, they actually adopted a lot of Mongol stuff, including what they're wearing here, and even the bow might be influenced from that. So things were going all right, you know, for about 300 years. You can come in, or not.
Or not. Some of it, they got scared.
So 300 years, they're doing pretty well for themselves until some folks from the north start knocking on the door, as it were. Oh, actually, before we get to that, I'm going to show you an example of. Well, yeah, just go click it. There it is.
That guy's sitting right there in the second row. He doesn't want to play apparently, but really.
It's buffering.
There we
Let's
go.
try that.
There it is, that sheet.
That's a beautiful example of how to shoot a bow.
Yep. And it feels so light, but just shoots those arrows just so far. Very beautiful design. Oh wow, it played again when I did it.
It does work on
What kind of bolt?
Now we're stuck, right?
What's that, I'm sorry?
What kind of bolt is it?
Oh, that one, it's actually this bow right here. We don't have a string for it, unfortunately. That one pulled about 30 pounds at 30 or 32 inches, so about a little bit behind you
It's
here.
not a killer.
What's that?
It's not a killer bolt.
Not a killer bow, no.
It's a
Not
bow you can shoot all day and knock
Oh,
over.
not a killer bow, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see, will this? It just plays it again. You just manually go and move it. There we go. Then some different folks from the north appear. These are Manchurians, what I'm dressed as.
In case they look familiar.
Yes. So they had a different approach to archery. The Ming Chinese were all about medium to long distance. They want to try to get rid of you while you're far away. They had a very different approach. They're going to ride real close to you, as close as they can, and they will blast you with one of these. Long, yeah, it's like shooting a miniature spear at you. This is a hunting variant. This is a broadhead. I forgot the name of it, but it basically translates in the Manchurian language as like arrow for hunting dangerous game, basically. So, and their bow, this, very different design, huge, yeah. And it allows longer limbs, huge tips here. It allows you to draw extremely far.
My goodness.
There's an account of a Ming chronicler during the Manchu invasion. He says that if a archer rode up close to him, these guys, their draw weight of their bows were between 70 to 120 pounds. For just normal guys, there's definitely outliers who go even higher. It says that if they're close enough and they hit you and there's a man behind them, it's enough power to go through one and fix the other man behind him.
Yeah.
Oh,
Attribute
first
some-
time.
Okay, look.
Yeah.
You can attribute some of that to the sharpness of the point too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you see, it's back. And the flourish bit at the end is because basically the arm has kind of like nowhere else to go at the end. So, and it's not like a forceful action. It is just comes back. It's just to make sure nothing happens. Physically click on the other side. Great. So someone here came in and says like, oh, you look like a Mongol. And that's completely understandable. Because this is a Mongol, this is a Manchu. The only difference is their ethnicity, but they are equipped literally the same. Because they were serving in the Qing dynasty, they served the same army, standardization. Everyone was using the same weapons. So, let's see, so you think it's like, so you think they would, most Mongols, you think like, oh, it looks like this, right? But before the era of Genghis Khan, they weren't using these type of bows, the Manchu bows here. They had bows that were, again, similar to this, actually. Just if you ignore these crazy hook bits here, it was very similar to what they would have. In fact, we have an example here. It's not strung. Can you tell us again a little bit about this one?
That's a copy of a bow that was found in a burial in Mongolia in a place called Sagan Cha. And they think it's from around the 1400s AD, and when they found it, it was still strung. It's been sitting there strung for, roughly 700 years. One limb had kind of given in a little bit, but the bow was still strung.
Thanks to the arid conditions of the desert.
And this was made for me by a bowyer in Switzerland.
That's right.
A copy of that bow, pulling about 60 pounds and 29 inches, and a pretty fast shooting bow, too. The original probably would have pulled a good 20 to 30 pounds heavier than that.
What is that string made of? What kind of material is string made of?
The strings can be made of many different things. For, as far as I know, for Qing bows, as such, they would be made, if you had to, sinew, silk, or cotton. I don't know if there's other varied strings for other places.
It can vary about as much as different bows can vary. Primitive cultures a lot of times used gut or sinew. Rawhide, though, was also common. When you got into later periods, they had industries designed to make different parts of your bows. So in a place like China with a large industrial base, silk and hemp were real common. Same thing in England where they had generations of people making shooting bows. They made hemp. They grew and cultivated hemp specifically for that. In most Oriental countries, it was silk because it's got the best tension, the highest breaking strength of almost any natural material.
The kin is about the same in Turkey, basically. Yeah.
Silk is everywhere.
Six everywhere. Just one to add something. So the gentleman on the far, let's see, so your left, this is actually a picture of a hunting party of Kublai Khan, the founder of the Yuan dynasty, the Mongol dynasty in China. This gentleman right here, I unfortunately forgot his name. This is apparently a picture of him in campaign somewhere in the Middle East. That's how far the Mongols have gotten. You know very well that they've gotten a little bit into Eastern Europe, like Hungary and something like that, but the other part of their conquest is they actually got really into the Middle East. They fought some, let's see, call them Egyptians, but they're not actually Mamluks,
Overthrew the last caliphate.
Yeah. They were in Iran, they were in Iraq, they're all over the place. Interestingly enough, the Christian Crusaders thought it was such a blessing that these Mongols, they tried to actually forge some kind of alliance between them. But they didn't really think about that until the Mongols came knocking on their door. Yeah, there you go. So now we're thinking, again, now we're getting to the modern era. So this is a very, very early 20th century picture of Mongol soldiers belonging to the Qing dynasty in China. And they had the same equipment that the Manchus were using. But when the Qing dynasty fell in 1912, they got knocked with a Republican revolution. Mongolia broke off from their own country, but they still maintained the military arts of Qing China. So they're still using this bow. But they were using it for fun, for sport. And then we finally get to the modern age. Ears here got a little bit smaller, so they're not drawing as far, and you'll actually notice something interesting. So all these Asian bows, they're loading the arrow here on what you would call the wrong side here. The outside. Here, she's actually loading it on the left side of the bow. Because here, but she's using a thumb draw. And I really should have gotten into that a little while ago. We'll get to that in a little bit. She's doing this now purely for accuracy because she's now in a stationary place. She's trying to get a target, just like Olympic archers, basically. Whereas when you load the arrow on the right side, the arrow can't be really knocked around a whole lot. And battlefield archery is much more dynamic. You're trying to you see your mark, let it go. Another mark, just let it go. the Koreans, of course, they had their own home archery too. What we have here is a modernized Korean bow. They have this interesting grip here. It's almost to inform you how to grip the bow, almost like if you looked at the American recurve with the pistol grip, that informs you how to grip this thing. This one here it's a little vague, but you basically want to do pinky, ring finger, middle finger is going to be like hard, like a little less hard and kind of light, and then here is a little bit like, these aren't doing a whole lot. And that's how you grip it. And same thing, this is a tiny bow, but look at this. It's not going to break. And these things launch arrows very far.
Tell them how far.
Tell them how far? So we have here, so typically at a Korean archery range, so in Korea they have like Olympic style ones, but they have actual Korean style range, right? And they are ranged out to 145 meters. Really far.
That's their everyday practice.
Everyday practice. And if they really want to go far, they can use a little flight arrow, really skinny, and I have here emphasize long range, out to 350 meters, or to 3 football fields. Can you imagine that? It's absolutely crazy. The reason why we still have these is because there's a little interesting interaction with a prince from Europe. He visited Korea, and when he saw Korean archers doing this, he's like, hey, that's really interesting. You should nationalize that into a national sport. And he's like, you know what, that's a really good idea. So he started establishing a lot of schools, making sure Korean people still remember their traditional archery. All right, so here's an example. This is a Korean fellow here. Those targets, they look like, oh, they're normal size. It's only because they're huge. They're pretty tall targets.
About 6 feet by 4 feet.
Yeah. And you'll know when he hits it because a little red light goes off in the distance. There he is. Let's go. If you let the video play out, he does it 2 more times. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we can move on. So here,
in between.
oh, so actually, there's this. Let me just actually do this. Is it? That's a thumb ring. So for archers in Europe, they'll use fingers. In the actually age of the 100-year wars, they actually use 2 fingers. But you're familiar with doing 3. So in Asian archery, they would use a thumb ring. This is a Manchurian style thumb ring. Goes on like this. Goes on here. If you want to let go, just open your boots and they come off. The other typical style one, I think, let's see. Ken, you have your thumb ring? Yep. Awesome. When the kin, actually, do you want to show it? Yeah. The typical style one is a ring that has an elliptical shape. It goes on sideways, and you lock it, and it's like a shield, like a lip here. And basically, it does a similar concept to this. The Koreans have this unique ring called the male ring. I wonder why. And it was for pulling extremely heavy bows, because even with this, you still have some the string touching you. So some of the pressure is still going onto your thumb. So you have to be a very practiced archer to pull heavy bows. This type of thumb ring, all of the pressure is just going into this knob. So you're not feeling anything. It's almost like a release for modern compound archery. And if you hit the next video, we have a friend of ours from California.
Who that?
That's Jin.
Oh.
the leather bit there is just to keep the ring from coming off of your hand, basically.
The tricky part with the thumb ring is not sending the thumb ring downrange with the arrow.
What were they made out of early on, bone?
Usually,
Yeah.
horn, bone is usually a shooting ring. There are all sorts of gold and silver and stone ones, mostly for jewelry purposes.
So is part of the leather like thicker? Because it's
It's
not
stitched
folded.
over a lap stitch, so as he turns it around, it gets just a little tighter, and that keeps the ring from going off. So he's taking his sweet time.
I know.
He's looking at the shooting.
So you see, when he grips it, the string is just, it's not even touching, he's grabbing it.
And it just slides right off the end of that.
Pretty much, yeah. You'll see when he gets to actually shooting.
That's why it's deeper.
So why do you think it didn't carry over into
Into Western archery?
the, yeah?
Mostly because the bow is a pretty distinctly Asian bow.
Yes.
They take a long time to make and they're very specialized. Europeans generally stuck with the wooden bows and those draw better with 3 fingers because their size.
Oh, another thing to note as well is with the bow design, the Koreans. Korea is an extremely mountainous country. So whenever they fought invaders, they weren't on the ground as much like they would be in China or Mongolia, where they'd be riding on horses. They would be in a fortress and they would be wanting to pick you off from as far as possible. So they have these little compact bows that are designed to just launch arrows at you from very, very far distances. Let's see. What I don't know as much about Japanese archery. Yeah. Oh, yes.
I noticed when you did the video of you shooting and then this last one, you don't use an arm guard.
Correct.
From slapping your.
So, I found that interesting too when I started shooting. I'm like, I don't really need to use an arm guard because the way I'm holding a bow, I can just come here. The string is nowhere close to my arm at all. See, I don't know if I can, just kind of walk here and here. So my arm's kind of like at an angle, you can see that? So when it releases, it's going nowhere in my arm at all.
It might be because of the way that there's so much like pressure and bottom finger.
One of the main reasons is because if you look at one of these unstrung, it's flexed so far the opposite way. Then when it is strung, the string is incredibly taut on there. So if you ever look at someone shoot a bow in slow motion, you'll see that string move like this after the arrow is released. One of these won't do that because it is so taut on the bow. You look at a simple wooden bow when it's unstrung, the shape of it is just flat.
Yeah.
So when you shoot it, the string has a tendency to over travel and rebound. And that's why it's going to catch you in the wrist. Like shooting one of these bows, it's going to catch you in the wrist no matter what you do because the string is going to rebound. That's why Western archers and American Indian archers all wear bracers. Modern archers do, often because they don't want a big old bruise there if they make a mistake.
So that man.
Oh, we're going to Japan? Okay,
Yeah.
we'll cover Japan briefly. Unfortunately, I don't have a Japanese bow here to show you because mine is in for repairs. The one I built a couple of years ago developed a little bit of a separation in the layers, and I have to fix it, and I didn't bring it today.
I
But-
want a refund.
What's that?
I said I want a refund.
Sorry. So we'll have to hand them back whatever it is they gave you.
Yeah.
Do you have the little click?
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Everybody, when they think of samurai, they think of swords. And while that's very true, the bow is actually far more their primary weapon during most of their history. They were primarily horse archers, like this guy here. Their goal was to ride around and shoot as many arrows as they could, and then they would close with each other and generally wrestle with each other and stick each other with sharp knives. The sword didn't really do too much of a purpose until the samurai stopped wearing so much armor and going into open battle so much. Early judo and sumo come from the wrestling techniques they used against other people wearing armor. But the bow is what we're talking about today. You notice one limb is short and the other limb is very, very tall. Nobody really has a perfect explanation for this. A lot of ideas, but no perfect explanations. One of the best is you can't shoot a bow that long on horseback if you're holding it in the middle, not could you? Because the horse's head would be in the way of the string. But if the bow is shaped so asymmetrically like that, it makes the clearance much easier. You'll also notice, we got a guy doing horseback archery here, the arrow is enormous. Because the top limb of that bow is so long, you have to draw it much, much, much farther to get those limbs working. Otherwise, it's just dead weight on it. archery basically played a preeminent role in samurai warfare up until they got gunpowder and started arming large amounts of people with muskets, and then the aristocratic horse archer kind of declined after that. Because just like those English longbowmen, it's no fun being an aristocratic archer if someone blows you away with a pistol. It just takes all the fun right out of it.
Yep.
And now we're on to Turkey.
Yes.
And this is this guy's province right over here.
Yep. So again, if you want to move, just hit the. Yep.
So, hello everyone, I'm Akın, and this is where I come from. So, I will be telling you something about the Turkish archery and the other side of Asia, or Western Asia maybe. So, yes, the Turks were basically originated from the Central Asia, where the terrain is mostly steppes and nothing to, use around, or nothing to grow on. So you need something to hunt. You need something to take care of, like sheep or cows or something, and then you need to hunt the other animals to feed yourself, feed your homestead. So that's when the Turkish felt the need for some instrument, let's say, to catch the prey and eat them. So basically, at first, it was most likely to be much more longer bows were used, just like my colleagues just mentioned. They were mostly longer because the let's say the materials they used were not really able to make it shorter, because they used bigger horns, and the technology was not really eligible for them to make smaller bows. So they used these kind of bows until, let's say, 12th century or so, and they were also really useful in any kind of combat or hunting scenarios. But then the need for some improvements came, and so as you may have noticed, these bows are not the ones that you saw on the previous slides, because these are much more shorter bows. So how can you make a bow shorter, and what does it give you? Like, what advantages does it give you? So first, you need a technology that you improved over maybe thousands of years while you're making bows, like maybe millions of bows, and then you just find the correct material, because you are stretched over like 3 continents maybe. So you are able to get whichever horn you like and whichever sinew you like, and then you just, and even the boot is really important when you are making such composite bows. So you find all those materials and then combine them, and you improve your bows in technique and in style. So these kind of bows were being made after, you can say, after 14th century maybe, and so let's say, why did the people start using short bows? So when you are on a horseback, it's really advantageous to use a shorter bow. As in the previous slide, you see, like let's say, in this one, you see that you can use even a enormous bow on horseback. So why do you need this one, right? So here's why. On a horseback, you have to be fast and agile, and you have to adapt your tactics or strategy to your equipment also. So let's say I'm on a horseback, and let's say I'm on a horseback, which is something like this. This is the head of the horse. So I'm riding on a horseback, and if I have a longer bow, I'm not really agile as I want to be, because I'm really strict with a longer bow, which I can only shoot on the side, on one side mostly, because turning this bow on the other side and just facing this side would be it would trap me on the left side, which is also really dangerous on a pedal position, because if the enemy is on the other side, you have to take the bow again, which is really long, which can maybe this one.
Sure.
Yeah. So if I have a really long bow, I'm really stuck with this side, because I have to take the bow on the other side, and you remember you have a really angry and furious animal head inside of you. So you need to be careful, because
Crack him in the head.
yeah, actually that's your most precious, valuable armament, I can say, because yeah, that's your most precious weapon actually in the battle. So you need to take good care of it. So you don't want to hurt it. It's really not feasible to take a long bow to the bow, because I need to maybe shoot on the back. So I need to go back, and it's not really feasible. So then they thought that well, we have shorter bows, so why not improve our horseback archery skills in a way that we can just, well, shoot on this side, or even to the front, or even to the other side, or even to the back. So this kind of short bow gives you a real advantage over field. So they said that they implemented this kind of tactics to the false retreat tactic, because when you are on the horseback, you are attacking to the enemy, you are just shooting arrows, and the enemy starts to come to you, because they think that you are really charging onto them, and they just come forward to confront you, and then you just turn your horse back and start to run away from them, because on their foot, they are on foot, or they have maybe slower horses, so they just start to pursue you, but they are not able to reach you, so you are just using this chance to shoot a few more arrows, and then maybe do the same thing over and over again until they are really pissed off, or until they are really up. So one of the other advantage or disadvantage for this kind of short bows is on a longer bow, I can say you can use 3 fingers easily, because it's really giving you the angle to use your 3 fingers. So it's not squeezing my like the index finger and the ring finger, but in this kind of a short bow,